So Jane Elliott's her name. Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Conversation Logical Reason. And as always, I'm going to say thank y'all for joining me today. So when I first saw that video of Jane Elliott, I had never heard of this woman, but as best I can make out, she was clearly straight up a feminist, straight up dyke feminist, perhaps maybe early third wave feminism, or like she may have been somewhere between third and second wave feminism, but straight up feminist. And she's regurgitated all of the same nonsense that these race hustlers keep spewing. I mean, most white people have no problem with black people. I would say probably over a majority, very small percentage of, if there is, do have a problem with any other people of any other race. But some white people just go extreme, trying to pretend that they want to help black people, and a lot of times it's not good because they are participating in the same problems that the race hustlers are creating. And that's a mentality of victimhood. But anyway, she basically, like I said, I'm going to go into this video more fully to elaborate on what she was saying and debunk the things that she was saying in the video to show she's just repeating nothing but the race hustlers have been repeating for years. She's just picking up their nonsense the way black folks pick up their nonsense.
And right now, white people are really frightened. If you don't understand the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book, The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg.
Okay, the wall is not about fear. It has never been about fear. The wall is about keeping illegal immigrants out. Okay? Anyone can migrate to America. We have an immigration policy. You want to come to this country, you follow that policy. We cannot have people just illegally run into this country uncontrolled that we don't know. That's not safe, because anybody can just run across the border, especially when this day and age of COVID, right? People can run across the border, you don't know who these people are. The whole purpose of the wall was to have control over the border. And just like you have to maintain integrity of your home, your property. You don't want nobody just running up into your home, your house, running on your property. You want to know who they are. Well, the same thing goes for the perimeter of the country. You can't say, I'm gonna lock my doors and walls to keep people out of my home and off my property, but have no problem with people just running into the country. Because if that's the case, if somebody run into your home illegally, then don't come crying to me if you don't want to protect the border. But again, the wall is not about fear. The wall is about keeping illegals out, which we should be concerned about, keeping illegals out. You want to come here, do it legally.
Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute, and he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, "The main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country." He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now,
white people frightened? Really? Like, where are all these white people shaking in their boots over this? Again, white people have far more problems to worry about than if America is going to be a majority white country in 30 years or whatever. That's nonsense that you hear from these race hustlers. Again, she's just picking up all of their nonsense and just going too far with it. But specifically speaking, they just aren't enough babies being born in general, especially amongst white people and black people. For white folks, it's just lack of procreation. For black people, it's abortion and murder. And of course, abortion is a problem with white people as well. This is not a white problem or a black problem. This is a Western problem. Western societies, countries in general, when countries get industrialized, they have a tendency to less likely to need more people, have to have more children to help around the home, around the farm. So people have less children then. Again, in first world societies, you don't have to have a whole bunch of children for safety and for production. You just simply don't need it so people don't have a whole bunch of children. But this, like I said, this is a Western problem. This is not a white person problem. This has happened all in all Western countries. You see the replacement rate are below basically the level to maintain society.
I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you almost exactly what he says. He says there are 3 things we can do to solve this. Number 1, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you?
We actually do pay women to have babies in America. Matter of fact, the Great Society, which was pushed on, basically created for black people, now we have the highest rate of paid for babies than any other race in this country. So where's racism? What is she talking about? We are America is the #1 immigration country in the world, the most diverse place on the planet. Now when it came down to the Muslim refugees fleeing the Middle East because of all the wars, we saw that Europe started taking on a higher rate of immigrants, but that's only because of that immigration. But prior to that, and I don't even know if it's still happening, but prior to that, America's always been a nation with the highest rate of immigration, a place where more people are wanting to come to. So again, where is she getting this nonsense from is just beyond belief, getting race hustlers. But, it's estimated that something like 20 million black babies were aborted since Roe versus Wade. This is a choice. Abortion is a choice. Nobody puts a gun to anyone's head, force them to get an abortion. But black folks, we suffer abortion at a higher rate at anybody. But again, because black women are making the choice to go to these abortion clinics. So once again, she's just hyping and repeating the race hustle narrative, not the race hustle nonsense. That's all she's doing.
Can you talk a little bit about the trauma associated with?
The trauma associated with it?
Yeah.
One of the main traumas is it tells white people that they are superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. And then they find out suddenly that we've got a black president. That's traumatic. That's where the trauma is. Living a lie, finding out the truth is traumatic.
So where are all these white people claiming to be superior because of a lack of melanin? I would love to hear this from these white people, that all these white people claiming to be superior, that these race hustlers and then these apologetic whites keep quote unquote saying. By the way, white people have just as much melanin as black people. I've actually learned is that melanin is not a matter of how dark your skin is, because melanin is just different colors. But Obama, for all these racist white folks, Obama won 2 terms because white people voted for him. White people are between 65 and 70% of the country. So if all minorities would have voted for Barack Obama and all white people would have voted against him, he wouldn't have won. So like I said, where's all this racism? When we look at society, the more and more we look at society, the less and less racism that you actually see, and the most racism is coming from the left and generally out of mouths of black people. But again, what she's saying here is just nonsense, and there's no evidence to support it.
Finding out now recently that within 30 years, white people will be in the numerical minority in this country is going to be traumatic. White people are scared to death right now, particularly white males. They're scared to death that they are going to lose their power in the future. And they are. But if you want to get ready for the future, if you want to be treated well in the future, treat others well in the present. What we do in the present constructs the future.
Okay, here she's talking about this alleged power that white folks are supposedly afraid to lose. Now, this is another thing I need to know. have somebody please explain to me exactly what this power is, you know, how this power works, and how every single white person in America wields this power like a Excalibur or something. I'm just curious because I keep hearing this all, you know, white people have all this power, but when you hear them explain what this power, somewhat try to explain, you say, well, only a small percentage of people have this power. You know, they say that the racism is power and privilege to control someone's life. Well, what percentage of people in America literally has the power to control somebody's life? What percentage of white people literally have power to control someone's life? It's a very small percentage of people in this country who really truly have that much power. So the majority of people, the majority of white people, can't be racist according to that definition. But the left are often crying about, you know, stereotyping and generalizing, but they're the ones that's always stereotyping and generalizing.
We called the Japanese, and you'll pardon me, but this is what we called them, slant-eyed little yellow We didn't say that about the Germans. After the war, we rebuilt Germany and Japan, and we get along beautifully with the Japanese. That was in 1945 that we finally won that war. How many years ago was that? Figure that out quickly.
I'm not a math person, but...
You're not a math person, but you know it wasn't that far.
Right.
And it didn't take 50 years for us to have peace with the Japanese and the Germans, even though we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The Japanese hadn't killed 10 million people. Nowhere near that. We didn't drop any bombs on Germany, any atomic bombs on Germany. They were a different kind of people. We couldn't afford to do that. We killed how many Japanese people with 2 atomic bombs?
It's also been estimated that more lives were saved because of the dropping of the 2 atomic bombs in Japan. I mean, Japanese people were ready to fight and die to the last person. I mean, some of them people, women were jumping off cliffs to not get captured by American soldiers. I mean, they literally had to stop these Japanese women from doing this, jumping off cliffs. So Japan more than likely wouldn't have surrendered had those 2 bombs not being dropped, and we would have to send in more men, more of our soldiers would die, more of their people would die to try to get them to surrender. So actually, again, it's the atomic bombs saved more lives. Now, as far as dropping them on Japan and Europe and Germany, well, Germany is in Europe. Japan is an island out in the Pacific Ocean. So you're talking about a different dynamic of trying to fight a war there. It's not the same. In Germany, I mean, in Europe, we had our soldiers stage and progress all across, you know, France to get into Germany, to invade Germany. Well, Japan is just a different story. So I can see why the bombs were dropped there, and also again the mentality of the people were different because German people were not going to, more than likely, were not going to fight to the last man. That's the mentality that you often see in Japan that they had. You would have seen women throwing themselves off cliff in Germany to not get captured. They didn't do that. Matter of fact, we've heard the stories of how the German women responded when the American soldiers and the Russian soldiers got there. They responded the typical way that women do. So again, the fighting Germany and fighting Japan was two different dynamics. That there's no racism there. That she's trying to make a race narrative, like a true race hustle.
And they forgave us. You want to talk about forgiveness? You want to talk about changing this thing? I cannot understand how Japanese people can stand the sight of any of us, and yet they do. I cannot understand why black people who have been subjected to the ugliness that they've been subjected to in this country can get up every morning and go to work among us and not be absolutely furious.
Now this is the last part of the video that I cover. It has maybe an additional minute and a half. You get much of the same nonsense, but you know, lots of nations have become allies after warring with each other. I mean, we're allies with Germany right now after fighting 2 world wars against them. I mean, we have NATO, they're part of it. And all the nations, pretty much the European nations that fought in World War I and World War II, are part of NATO now and are allies. So again, that makes no sense what she's saying. But as far as this mistreatment of black people, yeah, again, we can all agree that there was a point in time in which black people were mistreated in this country. But the majority of the people, black folks alive today, never saw the mistreatment. They never saw that mistreatment. So I always ask this question: why do we keep brainwashing the next generation about a mistreatment that they never saw? If it's going to cause them so much harm that they can't function in society, it doesn't make any sense. So it's no excuse for what they're doing, constantly crying about this mistreatment of black people that most black people today never saw. That's insane. But this is what they do. Again, race hustlers don't care about logic. They don't care about common sense. They just care about victimhood and turning black people into perpetual victims. Anyway, this video clearly was idiotic. Nothing that she said made any sense. And clearly, she was just regurgitating the same nonsense that she just constantly hear from all these race hustlers. Now, she's a very embodiment of, dear white people, stop helping us. Black folks don't need the help. What we need is a swift kick in the ass and roll up our sleeves and get to work. Because there is no systemic racism, there are no laws in this country. And I wish people like her, white folks like her, would stop trying to help black people, because she's just doing just as much harm as all the race hustlers are. Anyway, y'all, that's my little breakdown of the video that she did. And again, just another white person out here who just doing too much to want to help black people. And in doing too much, doing too worse. Doing a lot of harm. Anyway, y'all, as always, until next time.